Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
What is suspicious to own but not illegal? A collection of other people's hair. A collection of other people's hair. My back is a kind of a collection. I got pulled over late at night, and when the cop shined his light into the cargo area of my station wagon, the most visible objects were a shovel, rope, gloves, and the giant tarp-wrapped bundle of yard refuse I was bringing to the town compost in the morning. Surely there was at least one roll of duct tape or gorilla tape back there. At least he had a sense of humor about it when he strolled up to my window. So we're off to bury the body under the cover of night. Quote, officer, I think we both agree it isn't daylight work. Quote, early worm gets the corpse. When I was much younger, a friend and I were driving around some back roads at night. Nothing nefarious, just being 20-year-olds listening to music and laughing at dumb shit. We ended up in some neighborhood that I was unfamiliar with and turned around to leave. I worked for a local computer company and typically had 2 to 3 large computers in various states of disrepair in my backseat. Cop pulls me over for absolutely no reason that he could articulate. Shines a flashlight into my car and sees an entire seat full of computer parts. Informs me that he was there because there had been multiple break-ins recently where people had stolen electronics. It took a good 15 minutes of my dumb 20-year-old brain stuttering at him to convince him that I was clearly too stupid and too unprepared to have represented a threat. I was walking down the street in college at 11 p.m. carrying a huge computer monitor, and one of the campus cops stopped me. Asked me why I had a 23 CRT monitor, an expensive item in 1990, and no other computer stuff. I explained that I had just found it in the trash, and was going to use it for parts. Sat it on his car hood to get my ID, and water poured out of it. Since it was obviously broken, he sent me on my way. A candlestick, dagger, revolver, lead pipe, wrench, and rope. I think I have a clue of what's going on here. I'll be in the study. Quote, you need at least 16 pigs to finish the job in one sitting. So be wary of any man who keeps a pig farm. Quote, growing up my neighbor had one giant pig. I wonder if that was enough. A single pig can consume 2 pounds of uncooked flesh every minute. Hence the expression, as greedy as a pig. Lockpicks, they're seen as thieves' tools, but lockpicking isn't uncommon for a hobby. Have a friend who picked up the lockpick after one of his renters lost their keys and he couldn't find the backup set. Had to call a locksmith. And since they live over 15 miles out of town, it was a hell of a fee. Plus it's not a bad idea to have a kit for getting into cars sitting around with some cars auto locking doors. They aren't supposed to do it when the key is in the car. But apparently if you let a 2012 Chevy Avalanche sit for a week, it will still lock itself with the only set of keys in the car. The same friend found that one out the hard way. Again, locksmith is expensive that far out of town. They sell those little inflatable door jams at hardware stores. I'd be reluctant to purchase a vehicle that wasn't susceptible to a coat hanger. Multiple padlocks on your basement door. My friends and I moved to a new city and were trying to find a place to live. One of the houses we looked at had a door in the basement that was padlocked with multiple locks, but was also nailed shut. And I don't mean a couple nails. I mean like nails around every inch of the door frame. Needless to say, we did not rent that house, lol. Or hell no. Too many of any one innocuous item. You've got 10 citrus squeezers or 25 dusters. I'm going to be side-eyeing you. What about 38 ice scrapers? Definitely something to be concerned about. Human skull. I've got one. I'm keeping in it some stuff I don't use very often. Like my brain. I keep crayons in mine. A closet grow tent for tomatoes. A friend did have a whole hydroponic setup for peppers to make hot sauces weed he just bought, lol. I grow a ton of herbs and tomatoes in hydroponics. Because I like fresh, good produce, and it's easier to maintain than 12 to 14 pots of plants. There aren't many things better than bruschetta capris from homegrown fresh tomatoes and basil. Homemade mozzarella and fresh out of the oven sourdough. Lol, I actually do have a closet grow tent for tomatoes. I just don't have a lot of space. Right. Because of all the reefer. For me, water. My neighbors had well water and would dry up. They asked if they could run a hose and put it in their well, they would pay what was owed. Did this a lot last summer, no big deal, they paid. Then they bought a big above ground pool. Filled it for them, they always paid, my part was always around the same so I wasn't bent out of shape. One day the water meter guy knocked with an officer wanting to know why I was using so much water. I explained, showed them many hoses to reach my neighbors, and they were there to help explain. They explained to me that much water usage was throwing a red flag. So they were sent out to investigate to make sure no marijuana growing was happening. Make sure you go next door and make sure the pool is filled with water and just not a fake cover with 300 cannabis plants under it. Same can happen with electricity. Long time back I was propagating corals. Used high power metal halide lamps and water pumps that took a lot of electric Also you could see the glow from the UV lighting and MH units from the end of the road. I never did get a knock on my door, but I always expected it. In snowy climates, it's lack of snow. Drive through a neighborhood and every house has a layer of snow on it. And then suddenly there's one house that's bare. Chances are that's a grow-op. At least, that used to be the case. They might add a bunch of roof insulation these days.